Sweet. Welcome to the Cold Feet Podcast. Today I have on the show the one and only head honcho. For those who don't know what a honcho is, our guy Ben here will explain. Apparently, I'm the strength honcho. So the strength honcho is going to interview the head honcho. And Ben, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
All right, cool. So my name is Ben. I am otherwise known on Instagram as the Barefoot Daddy. And where mine and your paths seemed to have crossed was roughly about March of this year, when I put a post out to Instagram saying, I think I'm going to go and try going barefoot. And it snowballed out of, when I say barefoot, I mean literally no shoes and running, because I had this sort of wavery mindset about whether I wanted to go from Vibrams, which is what I generally run in, to sandals, and I couldn't emotionally get my head around why would I spend the same price that I do on Vibrams for sandals when I could just take off my shoes. So put it out to Instagram, and that was essentially the foundation of what has become the Barefoot Crew 5K, which is a global community of people who every Thursday go out and free their feet and do a distance up to, and in some cases beyond, 5 kilometers with no shoes whatsoever. And I guess that's me in a nutshell, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's how we met. I'm sure you have a lot more personality and secrets that we'll find out over the course of this hour. Just for all the guys wondering, like, what, choose Barefoot 5K? A lot of us hiked it. My first Barefoot Crew 5K, I actually hiked with, like, some weight on my back. It could be walked, it could be hiked, it could be run. It's done every Thursday. You don't need to be a barefooter to participate. It's literally just free those feet, take off those shoes, and, enlighten yourself, do something new, challenge yourself. In this day and age, gyms are closed, stores are closed, and stuff is going on. The only person who has power is you. So if you take off your shoes, you're empowering yourself and trying this new thing. So Ben here is a runner, as he said. He's also a barefoot runner, which can overcomplicate things. And in the past year or two, I moved from not just working with ball sports and strength sports, but I work a lot with runners as well. And I think the most common misconception of running is what's known as the Purist Mindset. Now, Andy, if you know Andy Bryant, so I had a podcast with him and he kind of was speaking about it where I just run and life is good. And guess what? If that works for you and you're doing your marathons and you're competing and you're no pain and you're coming first place or whatever it is, no problem. Keep on doing what you're doing because it's probably working. The same way that I wouldn't go to Ronaldo or the famous Liverpool guy and be like, hey, I'm a strength and conditioning coach. You're footballing wrong. In fact, I have to teach you how to do it. So that's kind of like the preempting the conversation. But I have found that runners need to strength train like every other human being on the planet. And I would kind of say that there's two categories of runners that I've seen. There's the purists, which is like, I'm just going to run and not do anything else because why do I need anything else? I'm just a runner.
Yeah.
And then there's the people who are on the opposite end and be like, I don't need to train my legs at all in the gym because I run. So I'll do some upper body, I'll do some push-ups, some pull-ups, some dips, whatever it is, some bench press. But my running kind of checks off the training for my legs. I'd love for you to weigh in on that. And then we'll just dive right into how to strength train for runners, how to lay it out. It's literally the most common question I get asked mostly by our community, every day. People are like, what do I do? How do I do it? So on you.
So I've always done an element of fitness through both school and into sort of professional working life and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I've had, I think everybody has, hiatuses at times where I have done nothing and all that sort of stuff. And I've had a couple of situations. Are you cold in there?
I'm warming up.
I've had a couple of situations where you're warming up a bit. We'll deviate a little bit shortly, but I recently downloaded the Wim Hof book, so I will be moving into that sort of sphere soon enough. Anyhow, so I've always done stuff. There was times where I was a gym rat, and there was times where I've been purely a runner. And I went to see, when I lived in Canada for 7, 8, 9 years. I think the US and Canada combined was about 12 years in total. I was very close to a friend of mine when I was doing rugby, who was a kinesthesiologist, and I think I've pronounced that properly, who turned around to me and said, and I was running at that time, he goes, look, if you're just running all the time, you're just running, you'll just become a good runner. But he goes, fundamentally, if you're looking for all over fitness, you need to do other stuff. So if you're running with a view to achieving an end goal of diet and fitness and health, you need to add other stuff into your regime in order to be able to allow your body to work better. And that's kind of stuck with me. Again, sort of, there's a love-hate about it sometimes. When do you do it? When do you not do it? And this is probably deviates back to yourself in a minute. But on my recent weight loss mission, I was like, I'm always running. I'm going to run. Once I've hit my weight threshold that I wanted to get to, then the strength training kicks in. And I think I'm into sort of week 8 of it now. And I can't tell you the difference that I feel all over, having now integrated the strength training back into my regime. And I don't know whether it makes me, I'm to assume that it makes me a better runner. My all over sort of, I guess my all over being feels stronger, and I could accomplish more stuff. I'm more open to doing more stuff because I feel that I've got the confidence in my physical side to be able to accomplish those ends. I mean, you were obviously off yesterday, and happy Yom Kippur. But I did a 9-mile barefoot run, and quite accidentally ran an 8-minute mile. So, which for me, as an average sort of 9.5, 10, depending on what I'm doing, after I looked at the stats, I was like, I can achieve this. And my expectation is that it is attributed to the strength training that I've put in over the last sort of 8 weeks or so, and the fact that I'm talking to guys like you and all the rest who are just sort of motivating me on a level that I haven't had in 20 years.
Wow, dude, that's a pretty inspiring journey. I mean, I remember when I was in the military, so one of the combat fitness tests was 2K in under 9 minutes and 30 seconds. So I know miles around 1.7 kilometers, but you're ready to join the military, bro. Let's do it. It's never too late.
A bit too old now, I think. Although, having said that, my kilometer, so I PR'd yesterday, 8 minute 1 second mile and a 4 minute 46 kilometer.
That's amazing, dude.
And that's whether in shoes or barefoot.
Wow. I mean, it kind of means that your body really adopted to the barefoot style of running, and being barefoot no longer slows you down, which is it's not a paradox, but it's like your stride length and the way you run and the way your feet hit the ground, it no longer matters whether you wear shoes or not. And that's awesome. That, I would say, is the ideal for every person who wants to be on this barefoot journey. I purposely waited for you to introduce that third category of person, and this is really where we're going to delve in today, because I think that most of the world is in this category, which is the regular dude or dudette who just wants to get in shape and be healthy. So most of these, they're called NARPs, but you're definitely not a NARP, because you're just
I've heard you on your podcast talk about NARPs.
NARP is a non-athletic regular person. The Barefoot Daddy here is not a non-athletic regular person, because he takes his training so seriously that he definitely fits into the athletic category. You don't need to be playing rugby or football to be an athlete. It's just, I define it as someone who gives it a little bit more than the regular dude who just kind of works out just for to feel good, whereas a person works out for a goal, for a purpose, PRing every day. That's already more of the athletic mindset. So this is the category of the person who starts running usually because of health or weight loss or some sort of, holistic, I want to be better, I want to be stronger, I want to be faster, I want to feel good, I want to lose fat, I want to build muscle. And the reason why running is so popular in this community is because it's easy. You don't need a gym membership.
Yeah.
In fact, until now, we've always said all you need is a pair of running shoes, but we're here to question that. But we'll go into that topic in a second. It's simple. You literally step out your door and you begin running. And that's where the problem is. Because running has to be taught. similar to any skill, whether it's weightlifting,
Yeah.
whether it's rugby, whether it's I don't know, snuggling with your stuffed dolls. You have to be taught the skill. And all these people are running, but they're not inherently running correctly. And that's where the paradox is. That's where 80% of runners, their knees hurt, their ankles hurt, their legs hurt. They're pulling their hamstring, they're spraining their ankle like every 2 weeks. Like even in the sports world, and that's where I mostly am, these people are spraining their ankle every month. And it shouldn't be that way. It's not like, oh yeah, you're an athlete, you sprain your ankle 17 times. No, if you did it right, sprained ankle should be a fluke, is that a word? That happens in contact injury. Like if someone smashes into you in rugby or football, even flag football, and your body bends the wrong way, obviously that's like a car accident. It's inevitable, it will happen. But spraining your ankle when changing direction or pulling your hamstring when running, this is not the norm, and it should never be the norm. So I really, really want to dive in today for all three categories. We said people who are purists and don't like strength training at all, people who skip, skip the lower body strength training because they run, and just the regular dude who wants to balance running and strength training and how to do it. We're just gonna like literally lay it out, and I'm gonna take this part and pop it up on social media so even people who don't have access to the whole episode can still listen to it. So first and foremost, we want to understand that it's all about goals, right? So if someone's a runner, like I don't know if I think, would you consider yourself more of like a runner or more of like a well-rounded person who's just trying to get stronger and healthier?
I think now I would class myself a runner, in as much as I get frustrated when I miss a day, right? I think we had a text exchange a couple of days ago where I was slightly antsy about the fact that I'd taken a rest day, right? So that, whilst I was fine having taken the rest day, I was kind of itching to get out and go for a run the following day, because I enjoy the endorphin and serotonin rush that I get after it. Whether I'm good or bad, it's that sense of I've done an activity, right? It's like it's a finisher task. It's an easy finisher task, right? It's like you get a project at work, you start at point A, you finish at point B, and you feel like, and you sent it off to your boss or whomever, or your client, who's typically your boss anyways, then there's a sense of accomplishment, and that's how I perceive my runs, whether it is training. So I'm becoming more rounded, right? So to address the sort of second category, I think I am a runner that is becoming more rounded, and I use this phrase a lot at the moment about falling down rabbit holes. So this is looking at the content such as yours, Andy Bryant. There's Vaughan Thompson over in Australia, who I keep on following his journey. Obviously, we all know Ren, God love him, and some of the mad stuff that he pulls off. Because of your podcast, I've been engaging with a lot of Kiana Knapp's stuff, and all of these, and there's a whole bunch of other people as well, I hasten to add, Freedom, whatever, and Instagram seems to be the source for everything fitness wise for me at the moment, because I can connect with all these people globally that I wouldn't do here, and so your perspective is so much broader. But seeing what everyone else is doing, whether that is just a movement or natural movement or weight training or what have you, is driving me to want to be a more rounded, I would never class myself as an athlete, but I feel that I want to be that. I'm inclined towards wanting to go that way, because I feel that it will improve my running or whatever other task that I choose to take on at some point. So to come back to your sort of the third point, and I've used these in different orders, but if you're just a runner, you can run, but you will hit a threshold where you're going to get frustrated, or you're not doing your time. And most runners, I think, deviate towards being, they have elements of OCD mentality. They'll either need to go around, because I do it, so I'm assuming that everyone else does. You'll need to do a loop, or you'll need to fall. And it seems to be ever present on any social channel about people sort of going, you're a runner when you go 200 yards down the road, because you then circle out your 4 miles, or whatever it is. You can do those sorts of things, but there will surely come a point where you'll turn around and go, okay, well, I know I can achieve this, but I see this guy down the road or girl, and she's doing that. So how do I get to that point? And that's where the sort of the rabbit hole of the strength stuff has sort of fallen into place for me.
Okay, so first off, you get the athlete title. Sean Fit for Life certified, you earned it. I'll give you like a little sticker. You have it on your but was always an athlete. We got to get one of those going. Regarding you said about Instagram, and I think I've mentioned this every podcast, the fact that we're having a podcast now from Israel to England, or you connecting to all these movement specialists, is the beauty of social media. And I do take, a week off every month. I do take weekends off. I turn my phone off multiple times, as you know, because I'm like, sorry, I'm out now for 24 hours. But social media is a blessing to an extent. And there is so much information out there. So YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, you can learn whatever the hell you want on the internet. And that's a blessing. And we didn't have that 20 years ago. I was about to say 100 years. We didn't have that 10 years ago. We didn't have this.
Yeah, sure.
Like, you can follow 10 people. One's a mobility, one's a movement, one's a runner, one's a strength coach, and you can learn everything you need to know, because the amount of free information out there is flawless. Now, on the flip side of things, it's also a con, because you can get very overwhelmed by things. But I need to do Kiana's external rotation, and Freedom is doing this pull-up thing, and Sean's doing this jumping thing. Like, what do I do? So that's what I'm trying to do in this episode, and just kind of give clarity. So if you're a runner, if you out there, person listening, designate yourself as a runner, meaning I want to get better at running. Strength training is not optional. But it's not that I have to become a bodybuilder or a powerlifter or even a gym rat. It's my strength training journey.
Yeah.
Goal is to assist my running. The second we get to that understanding, it makes it a lot easier for runners to handle. I was speaking to Vic the other day, who's like our what is she? Our thought honcho? No, she's our creative honcho.
She is the ultra honcho, and we went to this running show last. She's insane. Yeah, so
she is. I know.
She holds a record that she was talking about on the Monarch's Way. She ran 600 miles, which is the escape route of Charles II around one of the wars back in the 1600s. And she followed it, and she has the female record doing it in 13 days, 13 hours, and 38 minutes.
I like that.
I mean,
we're talking about someone who's an ultra runner, an elite athlete, someone that you don't meet in your daily life. And, I've been working on building a strength training program for her. And as I'm building it, it's such a cool journey for me, because A, I'm going to be able to use it for guys like you and other runners out there. But B, it's not like, oh, I have to go to the gym now for 4 or 5 times a week. No, I'm going to continue my 4 or 5 times a week running. She hits 60, 80 kilometers per run. This is not your average 5K, people. The strength training is once to twice a week to assist the journey, prevent injury, and just help those. I don't like the word weak, so I'll use less strong point training. So basically, those don't understand what I said. Weak point training. If the knees are achy, if the ankles are achy, if the upper body's collapsing, we want to supplement the running with strength training. So for people like that, I would divide the year or periods of time into two areas. Number one, the competition area. Now, when I say competition, I don't mean the 13-day race, running around King Charles III's horseback. I mean, if you have a 10K you're competing in. And not even if you're competing, but just you're running the local 10K, or you're running a half marathon, or you're doing some sort of race to raise money for cancer. We've all participated in those. So that I would consider a competition day. And the same way I would apply the science to athletes, where they have their game day and that you have to monitor the loads. That's what I would apply to runners. So I would divide the year or 6 months into 2 periods. Period A is the strength training period, meaning if you've never strength trained before, we want to build that solid base of strength, stability, and mobility. So we're talking anywhere between a month to 6 months, and the ideal is usually 3 months, because I've known 3 months, and I'm sure you can tell me this as someone who's been working pretty hard the past couple of years, is the place where you'll see change. If you work out for a week, you'll be like, oh, I feel good. You work out for a month, you'll be like, oh, I feel better. 3 months, it'll be like, whoa, I'm faster, I'm stronger, I'm mobile. That's like the magic period where you'll start noticing noticeable changes in your performance, at least from what I've seen. So that period is to build the foundation. Now, you're still going to run, because running is your sport. If I'm in the off season, I'm not going to not throw a football around. I'm still going to throw a football around, just most of my training is done in the gym. So in those 3 months, you can hit the gym 2 times a week, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, tons of mobility, tons of stability work, tons of weak point training. I'm just going to use that term to simplify it. So if like your ACL has been bothering you, if your ankle is lacking mobility, if your shoulder hurts when you do like the running motion, if you struggle with uphills, that's the time where you build the strength in the gym. And I think a mistake that runners make is they're like, even in the off season, so to speak, and off season could be, let's say, like 6 to 12 months away from their competition or their feat of Guinness World Records, whatever they're doing that day. They should be lowering their running volume. Meaning, if they're normally running 5 times a week, they should be running 3 times a week and strength training 3 times a week. I kind of look at it to simplify it. Depending on how advanced you are, you have X amount of energy and capacity within your system. So let's say an average human being can, sorry, that's not an average human being. Let's say an average human being can fit 6 training sessions in his week. So he or she has to kind of moderate them and say, okay, I'm in this quote, quote, off season, once again, as far away from competition as possible. I'm going to run 3 times a week and I'm going to strength train 3 times a week. And then as we get closer and closer to the competition, then we start upping the running volume and lowering the strength volume. But there's no point in upping the running volume and lowering the strength volume if I didn't build that base in the first place. So just give an example. Let's lay out 12 months. I have a year, a competition in a year where I'm trying to run 100K to beat the world record in fastest barefoot run, whatever it is, something. I'm just making up a goal of sorts. So the first 6 months, I'll run 2 to 3 times a week. And the runners among us will be like, oh no, I might lose my endurance capacity. No, you won't. If you run 2-3 times a week and you're maintaining that distance or maintaining that speed per kilometer, you're not going to go down. And strength training, when done right, definitely won't slow you down. It will actually improve you. You spend those 3 to 6 months building that base. Then you move into the second phase where you build that base. You lower the strength to 2 times a week. And then you start upping your volume of distance, speed, hills, whatever kind of training you're doing. That's the general mindset of running. And the biggest mistake done there is either too much gym or too much running. Like, you kind of have to find that balance. And remember, to summarize the point, this is strength training to assist your running. It's not strength training just for general wellness or just strength training to be the strongest dude out there. Does that make sense?
It does, and I was gonna dive in, but you were on a good flow. But the 3 months to give people who listen to this. So I'm in week 8 of my strength training since hitting the weight threshold. And I, just using as a side example, when I get out of bed in the morning, you can roll out of bed if you sleep on the floor, I guess, but I just throw my legs over the side. I've noticed more definition on the side of my thigh than I think I have done recently because of the strength training and other bits. So whilst you're saying the threshold is tends to be 3 months where you go, oh damn, then I'm starting to see that now, and it's perseverance, right? Though I wanted to build on, or at least sort of probe a bit deeper. So as you know, the likes of Vic, myself, Damien, the Rewilding Dad, and Case, the Barefoot Explorer, we're running this marathon in 2 weeks barefoot. So the 3rd of October, and I've
That's
got
awesome.
the mindset.
You're doing the whole thing barefoot?
Yeah, man.
That's amazing. Wow, that's awesome. Whoa. Okay.
I'm of a mind at the moment, and I've had a couple of weeks that have just been nuts. So I haven't been as regimented as I would have wanted to have been. But I've got in my mind, I was going to do like 100-mile cycle with some buddies of mine that would have been mountain biking next weekend coming. But no one's really sort of bitten onto that. So I've seen that as a golden opportunity to go, right, I can go off and do my either 18 miler or something before the 26.2, which will obviously follow a week after. So I could go off next weekend and do that long run with the view that then I can just I can temper down and do like a couple of 3.1 or 5K runs during the course of that week, with the strength training in between, to then, so that come that Sunday the 3rd, I'll be in good shape, so my body won't be out of bounds in that way. Would you agree that that's a good strategy to do that, or would you recommend something else?
So being a strength and conditioning coach, this is literally what I do. Like my goal with the athletes is keep them their fastest, strongest, healthiest versions of themselves on season while putting as little load on them as possible. Meaning the
Mhm.
goal of football or rugby is for them to be very good at their sport. It's not to be
Yeah.
lifting 100 kilo in the bench press or running a 10K, within 40 minutes. So the goal is to minimize load as much as possible while
Yeah.
maintaining performance. So when it comes to like a race, like your race day in 2 weeks, the goal is to minimize load while maintaining the optimal readiness for the race day. So what I do, if it comes to either a deload week or the week before the race, I actually lower the volume. So what you're saying, the
Okay.
5Ks, I mean, it's a marathon. So 5K is not, once again, a 5K can be like a great recovery run, just, moving,
Yeah.
flowing,
Yeah.
feeling good on those rest days. But you don't want to be running like 10 marathons the day, unless you're Vic or doing one of these like 10 marathons a day for a week, which people have done. But if you're like prepping for a marathon, it's your first time, especially barefoot running, which is a lot more volume and stress on the body. You want to lower the volume as much as possible. So we're talking 2-3 lighter runs. One could be a distance run that's like anywhere between half to 3/4 of the race day. One could be a longer, faster run, and one day could be like a strength and mobility day. But you want to think about it. How little can I do? And when I say little can I do, not in cutting corners, but how much rest can I give my body while still maintaining that optimal performance? That's kind of how you do it. So there's multiple ways to juggle around with that. And the more experienced of a runner you are, the more experience with your body, the higher volume you might need. Because like a noob runner doing his first 10K can probably get
Yeah.
away with just taking a week off and like walking every day, just doing like light stuff, where someone's like running a marathon barefoot. So, he wants to touch upon that distance, especially hitting that wall, like, hitting that like, 20-30 kilometer mark
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
week before the race to get that mental readiness. He wants to get his knees, ankles, and also aerobic capacity familiar within like 4 to 10 days of the race. So his body's like, I've been there, I've done that. Another element, and we'll go into the tangent soon about aerobic capacity, is that it can be lost very quickly. So if you're like sick or just like stop running for 2 weeks and sit on the couch and like barely move, you'll go back to your run and you'll be like, whoa, I feel sluggish. Whereas
Mm.
strength training is a little bit different. Like you can take 2 weeks off the gym and come back and you'll be like, I'm stronger than ever, because muscle mass kind of sticks around a little bit longer or a lot longer than aerobic capacity. So it's all about balancing the works. And that's honestly where guys like me, or even guys like you who have more experience in the world, first of all, you have to know your body. You have to understand what you need, and you kind of laid it out. You know your body best. But also,
Yeah.
reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out to guys like me or other coaches out there who understand how to taper the amounts of volume
Mhm.
to optimize the load. That's where like the science
Yeah.
comes in.
Yeah. Okay.
Sweet.
Okay.
So now we're going to get a little bit into like specifics of strength training. So running, surprisingly or not so surprisingly, is one of the simplest sports to strength train. And the answer is because it's mostly one-dimensional. Whereas a football player, when I say football, I mean American football, but it can refer to soccer as in, sorry, I'm saying soccer to a British dude. I can refer to the
When
white
you
and
say
black
football,
ball.
are you talking NFL?
So
Are you
American
talking
football.
NFL football?
Yeah. So like American football,
Okay.
European football, which is called soccer in some places, rugby, tennis. These sports all require tons of different elements. They require speed, strength, agility, reactive agility, which is like not just change the direction, but actually like reacting to the opponent. I made a lot of posts about that as well. Mobility, and just so many elements that have to be addressed before they're in game shape. Running is, I'm 90% of the time running straight. I'm running in a fixed range of motion. I sometimes am going to have a hill, which means I need that strength in my legs. I need mobility to lift my hips up high enough. Especially if I'm running barefoot, I need to adjust to the terrain as well, which is super underrated when you're running
Yeah.
barefoot, like how important it is to train
Yeah.
that. And I say to like runners,
Yeah.
when they ask like, why do I put so much lateral movement in running, is because all it takes is that one time you see a cat and you like side skip during your intense run, and that's how your knee just like, nope, don't want to do that. Not used to that motion. So while runners is not a lateral sport, the way I strength train for runners, like program it, is obviously tons of linear stuff, back lunges, forward lunges, squats, all that
Yeah.
stuff, but lateral motion. So when that time comes and you do side skip and you do the trail deviates and you do step over a puddle, you don't be like, ooh, my knee didn't like that, my hamstring didn't like that. Like I kind of want you to be prepared for every kind of terrain slash obstacle slash short stopping during your run itself. So let's look at a format of 2 times a week. Now, what I said before about 3 months being like the game changer, everyone's different. And if someone has more experience, they might see it sooner. If someone has less experience, it might take longer. But, and I also don't like stereotyping, but I'm kind of trying to give this general feel for the general person, what will work for them. So if someone's a serious runner, when I say serious runner, they're either competing or they're running like 3-4 plus times a week, which is a lot of running volume, especially if you're talking like one run is 30 kilometers, one run is 15 fast, one run is with hills. 2 times a week is kind of the sweet point of training where you can either maintain, like, you know, we spoke about that before, that 6 month of training very easily for a long period of time, or even make change. Like if you're strength training twice a week to support your running, it's far superior than none. You don't have to be a gym rat to do it. So we're talking leg stuff. You know, the magic itself. You can, you know, once my strength program for runners is ready, you'll be able to see it. But you know, squats, which is just a basic moving the body in a full range of motion, and the reason for that is running, as your kinesiologist friend said. Actually, you used a different word, but I'll use that word because it's less T's in it. Running is a partial range of motion. And that's why, like, I remember in the Army, my combat fitness officer, who was like a competitive marathoner, he was running 10K in like 32 minutes. I don't know. Yeah, he's like, he was like, he wasn't Kenyan, but he was like really good runner. And I used to tease him because I was like the gym rat then. And I'd be like, yo, let's do like the stretcher run. Like, let's see who comes first. And like, he's faster, but the second there's weight on him, he's suffering like 100 meters and he's done. I'll be like, Joseph, this is why you got to strength train, man. You know what I mean? Like, especially in the tactical world. So why did I mention him? Because I lost my tangent. Oh, his range of motion was poop. He couldn't even reach his knees. And understand that, like, forget about running for a second. If you want a functional body that will carry you through life, and when I say life, I mean the marathons. I mean the 20-kilometer hikes with your kid. I mean, I'm in a nice ice bath, but I can demonstrate my ability. I mean, when you have to lift your leg while in a seated position. Oh, I got the head honcho caps. You need that mobility because the run is good. You can't, I know, I see your private jokes in your story. You can't just run and just say, oh, running only needs this range of motion, so I'm not going to do that. You need a full range of motion. Now, that doesn't mean you need Rensky level range of motion. It doesn't mean they need your spine to like hit the floor while in a single squat. It just means that an optimal range of motion is I can get into a deep squat comfortably and hang out there for a minute or two. I can easily get overhead, you know, hang out there for, we do this every Friday. We'll address that. Hang out there for half a minute, a minute, whatever it is. And when you're saying weight overhead, what does that have to do with running? Because just the act of running and moving your shoulders and elbows, if you're restricted and your scapula is not moving correctly, we're on, this might be audio. Anyway, so I'll say what I'm doing as well. If your shoulders always internally rotate and you're running kind of like this, you're not moving efficiently. So you're moving slower, you're not chopping properly, and eventually you're gonna have pain in your shoulder and chest because you're always in this fixed range of motion. So you kind of want to do some sort of big bad bilateral. My legs are starting to feel it. You kind of want to do some big bad bilateral movement. A bilateral movement is like a squat, a deadlift that just builds strength for the muscles and performance. And the reason is because, and I explain this to my athletes every single day, if I'm running up a hill and I never strength train, I could only produce the amount of force that I'm used to. Produce the force means running or going up the hill. So whatever my body's used to, which is those repetitive runs up the hill, I'll be adjusted to. If I squat in the gym and I squat 50 kilo, which is not crazy, it's 120 pounds. Every single person listening to this should be able to get to squatting 50 kilo or even their body weight. I have 50 kilos more force in my legs, which means I'm going up the hill. I'm 50 kilos stronger, which means my body can push my body weight plus 50 kilos more. So just address that before you start saying, nah, I don't need to strength train. I can push 50 kilos more with my leg. What is that telling you when I run, when I strength train? That doesn't mean I have to be a power lifter. It doesn't mean I have to be Eddie Hall and breaking the world record in deadlifting, but it does mean that the stronger I am in the gym, the more potential I'm going to have on the track, on the field, or
you'll fundamentally be more efficient when you're faced with an uphill challenge, and that's a metaphor rather than literal, right? If you need to all of a sudden, if you've got 50 kilos of weight behind you in reserve and you're sprinting to beat the other guy over the line, you know that you've got like your, to use a sort of Fast and Furious reference, you've got the Knox button on the side of you to go, and I'm gone.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to. Go ahead.
Yeah, or that's all I was going to say is just that's. I think that's the epiphany that I've had. I've always seen the two, much like you've explained and we've chatted about. I've always seen the two things as two separate entities, but actually, when you morph them together, you see better results. It's
right.
It's a very revealing and a very beautifully way of explaining the purpose and the why it is a good idea to strength train.
Yeah, I want to address that specific point about like a sprint at the finish line. So if you can remind me in like 5 minutes when I finish breaking down the movement. So I got that big bad bilateral exercise. It could be squats, it could be deadlift, and what rep range is asked commonly. So while runners tend to deviate towards the higher rep ranges because they think like, oh, an endurance sport, so I'll do that 15 rep range. The actual reality is nope. I want to be working in that 3 to 5 rep range, that 4 to 6 rep range, because that's where I get stronger. And what we just said 2 minutes ago about I need stronger legs. The endurance is covered. I'm running. I'm enduring my legs in this hourly cycle of gait. My legs need to get stronger in a full range of motion, and the sweet spot of strength is somewhere between 1 to 6 to 8 reps tops. So it's like I can, in my workout, squat in that 5 rep range, go up and weight every time. Then at the end, if I want to add some like tissue work, it's called, where you're like holding, static holds or 20 rep ranges just to be like endurance, that's fine. You also need to be getting stronger. And if you're just adding reps, all you're doing is mimicking running, meaning you're not actually getting stronger. After we got the big bilateral movement out of the way, I want to address unilateral. And unilateral is a simple way to simply put is addressing one limb at a time. And when we run, we're always on one limb at a time. If you look at a horse galloping, it's 4 limbs in the air. Now, if only we can sprint like horses, or Charlie or Jasper, that would be cool. Those are our dogs. But because your one leg is working one at a time, it's very important to address that in the gym as well, and address one leg at a time. So we got, forward lunges, reverse lunges. I like specifically for runners because it mimics running. I like the reverse to forward lunge combo, which will be in our program. Lateral lunges, step ups, lateral step ups, all these things, which let's say this is my legs. So instead of just going forward, I'm also gonna do a little bit of sideways stuff to if that cat comes, I'm used to it, but B, also to stabilize the knee from both sides. Super, super underratedly important. Single leg deadlifts, single leg jumps, all these things are literally running 101, right? When I run, I'm always on one limb. And think about it running. Hey, Charlie just came out. If I'm running up a hill and I'm on one leg, that means that steep hill that I'm running up, my one leg has to produce enough force. So there's the unilateral stuff. Okay. After the unilateral stuff, I want to also address the smaller areas which tend to get hurt or be in pain constantly, and that's the ankles, the knees, the hips, the shoulders. Specifically strengthening the muscles in a sport specific manner. When I say sport specific manner, calf raises, shin raises, stability, standing on one leg, putting the knee in uncomfortable positions like the Nordic curl, which I made a post about recently, the reverse Nordic curl. Even a lot of people, actually a lot of sprinters and runners that I work with, they tend to have hip pain, like a hip flexor right by the hip. And that's usually because their hip is not strong enough, because the squat doesn't really work the anterior chain much. It works the posterior chain. We're talking glutes, we're talking hamstrings. So just simply after you eliminated the squat, you did the lunge, you did the unilateral stuff, just basic hip flexion. So like if I'm right here, I'm standing on something, and just, you could even attach a kettlebell to your leg and just lifting your hip all the way to a full range of motion, addressing those small, less strong points. Calf raises, we said already. Bent knee calf raises, made a post about this as well, is huge because your soleus, the calf itself, there's 2 muscles there. There's many muscles there, but the 2 juicy muscles that plantar flex your knee, your ankle, is the calf and the soleus. So if you're not addressing the other big bad boy there, there's a problem. There's the peroneals, which you only hear about when you sprain your ankle. You're like, yeah, that big muscle on the side of your body, which is pretty developed in most barefoot runners. It's you know what I'm talking about? It's that like long muscle on the side of your tibia. So like That's what sprains when you sprain your ankle. And the problem there is because it's never trained. And I'm not saying you have to start isolating it for 500 reps with a band. It's just that for a runner, do that extra. Do the little extra. Do the banded raises. Do the peroneal raises. Do the little things for your feet that help you get better. Obviously, big toe stuff, right? Big toe is so responsible for gait. And if you have a bunion, if your big toe is smashed in, you're not running properly, it will lead to injury. That's kind of the lower body. Notice how simple I kept it. I said bilateral, unilateral, weak point training, and now we're gonna add one more element, which is known as power training. Now, before you tell me, what do you mean running is slow? No, it's not. I go up the hill. I pick up my pace. I sprint to the finish line. Runners need power as well. If you're running 10K at 4 Ben's pace, 440, that's fast. Now, I'm not saying that it's Usain Bolt level. I'm also not saying it's a sprint, but runners can benefit it from power training as well. And power, if we said strength is the ability to, have that extra 50 kilo in reserve, power is the ability to fire up the reserve as fast as possible. So when you're racing to the finish line, when you're racing up that hill, when you suddenly your tempo changes because you're halfway through the marathon, you're like, oh shit, I'm never going to place in the top 100. I'm never going to place in the Olympics. I'm never going to break the record if I keep this pace. You suddenly change tempo. You need to be able to fire up your body. So jumps, any movement done explosively, right? Where even same movement, squats, lunges, just done in a fast and quick, rapid pace will also carry over a lot to your running. That's why I'm so obsessed with power. I'm an athlete. So all these people, when I say athlete, I mean a ball sports athlete. These people don't just have to move endurance. They have to move quickly. So we have to fire up our muscles as fast as possible. So every movement you do in the strength phase, slow and controlled, they're going to do it quickly. That's it for lower body. Like, you don't really have to do, once again, a power lifter. Like, if I take a football athlete, I'll have them doing like deadlifts, lunges, lateral landmine scare squats, single leg deadlifts, like lots of volume, because the football player needs to be large and strong and powerful. Runner, remember, this is just to assist their running. What also has to be addressed, and this is underratedly important, is the upper body. And I think, man, you have both seen what I've called either runner syndrome or lack of strength training syndrome. And you see it in purists. People who literally have, for those who are listening to the audio, I just rounded my shoulder blades completely forward. I saw it in this tennis coach that I was working with recently. I was telling him about like athletic development. And he was showing me some tennis stuff. His shoulder blades are so rounded forward that he looks like a hunchback almost. And that's because when you serve that tennis serve, you're putting your shoulder in this rotation, and it's constantly putting the shoulder inwardly, and eventually his whole body is crouched forward. So runners who don't have a strong upper body and core, when I say core, I don't mean like the beautiful six-pack. I mean the erector spine, that's the back, that's the lower back muscle, the hip muscles, the core, the transverse abdominis, the deep muscle that you tap into when you breathe, the obliques, even the scapula. All these things keep your body nice and upright. And once again, running is about efficiency, right? So if I'm nice and upright and I'm moving my elbows nice and along my body, it's a little bit cramped in here. So I'm like not able to move in a full range of motion. I'll move here. Okay. I also do like I do a lot with athletes, like nice, like kneeling arm sprints. You're going to have a more efficient running pattern and gait. And if you have a more efficient running pattern and gait, your running is going to be better. So the stronger my upper body is, the better my run is going to be. Besides the fact that just for general health and wellness, I want a strong upper body as well, right? If my chest and shoulders and elbows are not strong, eventually it's going to lead to injury. Guaranteed. I can guarantee this. If you're just a runner and you're not training your upper body, eventually you're going to be like, why does my shoulder hurt? Because your shoulder is working when you run. My core is stabilizing when I run. My pec, it attaches to my chest. It attaches to my shoulder. It's responsible for, go ahead.
All I was going to say was when I was a kid growing up, and I did some athletics and all that sort of stuff. I think I posted a photograph ages ago when I was at school actually being barefoot, when I was like, it must have been between 10 and 13, I guess. I remember my father turning around, and at the time the sprinter of the day was Carl Lewis, right? And like Carl Lewis, 100-meter sprinter, you would think it's all legs and all that sort of stuff. He was tall, much like Usain Bolt and all that sort of stuff. But you look at those guys, they've covered everything because, and my father pointed this out, and he's not an athlete, but a soldier, or was formerly, he's retired now. They would run like this. And he goes, the reason they're doing this is because they're cutting through the air. They're literally cutting the airflow so that they're able to go potentially faster. Now, I don't know about sort of the physics of all this sort of stuff, but they're moving themselves like a train. You look at a steam train, right? And you've got the bars on they're shifting in this style, right? And that, I guess, makes you more efficient. I move my arm. I don't run with my hands down. My son does this, and he's 6. When he runs with his arms by the side. And I'm like, you don't want to do that, because you're not going to have that balance. And that's the beauty of some of the balance guys that we all interact with, yourself included, and the Challenge Wednesday, bouncing up and down on the pole. If your balance is good, then again, circling full way back to the sort of, you'll be able to dodge a cat, or for us over here, we have like rabbit holes that are sort of buried under the grass. I've had a couple of situations where my foot has gone into a rabbit hole, and I'd be like, oh, shit. But actually, because of the strength, I haven't had a situation where I've gone, oh, damn, I pulled a muscle and I can't run now for 3 weeks. The body is able to adapt, but it's also that balance that's come with some of the other stuff that are these sort of literal rabbit holes that I've fallen down. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. I'm going to address stability in one moment. Before I address stability, just to summarize about the upper body. So once again, when I'm running, my shoulders and elbows are moving. That's literally my core is keeping me. The core, unlike what most people think, is not meant just to, like, do those crunches. It's actually a huge stabilizer. So I want my abdominis rectus, my abdominal muscles, and my erector spine, and my obliques to be stable. I want them to keep me in that upright posture, which prevents energy leaking. We've all seen runners who kind of like, bounce side to side as they run, and that's losing efficiency. We want to be as stable as possible, allowing my upper body to run. My shoulders and my back, my lats, all these muscles that are working pull-ups and bench pressing and push-ups, these are all moving my hands. And once again, you brought the sprinting reference, and funnily enough, when I train, the national team here, the flag football, the girls and the guys, 20 to 30 minutes of the workout is sprinting technique. And it's not like just the same drill over and again, but it's a dynamic mobility. Then we move into sprinting technique, then we sprint with sleds, then we sprint itself, because the more you zone in, and I've made many resources this you can check out on my page, the more you zone into that perfect running form, sprinting form specifically, the better you'll go on the field. And this applies obviously to barefoot running as well, which for most people has to be learned. Like, people think you just pop in a pair of sneakers and just start running. Some people work, some people doesn't, but barefoot running has to be taught how to land correctly. And it's very, very similar, funnily enough, to sprinting technique. The main difference being sprinting, you're not using your heels at all, whereas barefoot running, your heel is landing after your forefoot. Specifically about stability. So running, we kind of addressed, the strength. We spoke about power. We spoke about unilateral. Running is the art of jumping and landing again and again. Every time my leg comes up, it's coming down. I'm essentially bounding off my legs. Obviously, at a slower cadence, at a slower pace, it's a little bit, less of a bound. Whereas if I'm sprinting, it's like I'm jumping. Oh, I'm starting to shiver. Woo! I got this. Let's go. I'm jumping off one leg at a time. But
next time we do this, I'll be in a bath, I promise you.
Yeah, all's good, bro. We'll do part 2.
I'll have a nice bath next time we do it.
We'll do part 2 in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. No, I'm just kidding. Every time I jump, I also have to land. And whenever like an athlete comes to the gym the first time, it's the first thing I teach them, how to jump and how to land, because jumping and landing is essential for life. It's going to happen. And all these ankle sprains happen when my ankle lands in that rabbit hole, that not metaphorical rabbit hole, that physical rabbit hole. I sprain my ankle and my knee goes wonky when I land on that rock. And that's because we have to understand how to land correctly. So true stability training is not just standing on one leg. It's not just standing on a pita or a bosu or all these like fancy, tools that I have and you have. It's also not just walking on a beam. Shh, don't tell the fuck collective guys that. Dun, 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 dun. It's actually landing from something. So true stability is like reacting. So I'm like landing with an external stimulus. So when I run and I land on that rock, that's a form of stability training. Now, it doesn't mean that running in rocks is stability. It means that when all the stuff that I do, all these challenges, this is why I like adding, the fit for life element to it, is because I'm adding a little bit more than just walking. Like I'm walking on the beam while the weight is forcing me to move in funky ways. And I'm jumping and landing and I'm moving laterally. Like one of the first things I do with an athlete as well, after they understand how to land correctly and jump, It's called a counter movement jump. So we got Mr. Minion here. I think his name is Stuart. So I jump, I land with minimal time. I move to the side. So it's teaching me how to like do these counter movement jumps, which is what athleticism is. It's what running is. So understanding how to land correctly. So now I'm going to summarize it up. Standing on one leg is step one, obviously. If I can't stand on one leg at all, probably, my running is not going to be so good either. And unfortunately, there's many runners who can't stand on one leg, and it says a lot about their stability, right? Then I want to move to it could be unstable surfaces. It could be beam. It could be slack lines. It could be those balance boards. But then the ultimate goal is understanding how to land and stabilize. So like chop, 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 land. Chop, 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 land. Jumping, landing, counter movement jumps. All sorts of things that mimic what I'm going to do in the marathon. Mimic how I'm going to absorb the force. And the way to absorb the force, and this isn't like a visual session, but is keeping your knee slightly bent. And that's the whole purpose of barefoot running, where you're not landing in this locked out variation, and understanding how to deal with loads. So, for example, one of my favorite exercises that I use in the gym as a pre-warm, as a warm-up, is I have the athlete stand on one leg. When I say athlete, I mean runners as well. Stand on one leg, and they're just going to take us a slightly light to medium plate, 5 kilo, 10 kilo, and just rotate the plate upwards, downwards, while standing on one leg. So it forces not just their, ankle to stabilize, but their whole hip, knee, and ankle, and from head to toe, basically, have to align themselves to the moving weight. And that's kind of what happens when we're running with the backpack, when we're running with the water, your fancy hydro packs. The water's sloshing.
Yeah.
The water's sloshing. That's changing my stability. The snack bars are moving around. The terrain is moving. All these things cause my body to adjust differently. And that kind of breaks down how I would look at strength training for runners. Do you feel that we've covered? Is there any other points you want to address when it comes to strength training for runners?
I think you've covered. I think that there's probably grounds for a follow-on chat at some point or another. But I think that as I say, the understanding that I've developed over the last few months, year or so, is that the strength training is as important, if not almost as important, more important than sort of trying to nail your pace and distance and all that sort of stuff. You can do those things if your body is being more efficient, and that comes through the strength training stuff. And that's my takeaway from our chat today, is that it's the importance of adding these strength elements to your regime. However, I'm not jacked up. I'm a broad-shouldered dude, but I don't expect to be rippling in muscle through this process because of the nature of what is my chosen activity in running. But I feel good in myself because I'm adding those sort of strength elements, and I feel capable. And I think if other people can get that context, then that would be useful to them, and they might be even better runners than they already are.
Absolutely. So just to summarize it all up, strength training is not negotiable for runners. We're talking anywhere from 2 to 3 times a week, depending on where you're holding competition wise. You want to ensure that you're doing, bilateral movements, squats, deadlifts. You want to be ensuring you're doing unilateral stuff, lunges, single leg deadlifts, lateral stuff, lateral step ups, lateral lunges. You want to have a power element, jumping, landing, moving weights quickly with intent. You want to have a stability element, and you want to be ensure that you are addressing your weak points. That's really sums it up in a nutshell. You're of course welcome to reach out to me if you need any help. You're welcome to reach out to Ben. He's definitely an experienced runner at this point. Let's finish off today with a little bit about barefoot running specifically.
Sure.
And how to transition it. So I'm blessed to be part of this international community, the Barefoot Crew 5K, the Foot Collective, Andy, Brian, I speak to him every day, Alex from the Barefoot Tree Review. As I grew as a human being and I got more spiritually connected to myself, I was like, wow, there's something to this barefoot thing. And since then, it's just been this never-ending journey of growth and mindset and just changing the way I view training. So barefoot is the way. I do believe that most people should be either spending time barefoot at home or slowly transitioning their shoes to more minimalist footwear. Everybody, blanket statement right there. I don't believe that you never have to wear heels. If you have like dress shoes or heels for work, that's okay. I wear cleats. I mean, I wear the Vivo barefoot shoes for practice, but for games I wear cleats. So it's
Yeah.
not like this is the way, and like I'm not open to anything else. I also don't believe that barefoot is the only element. Like I see lots of people who get lost down that rabbit hole, like, oh, I woke barefoot, now I'm a healthy human being. No, you're not. You have to you still have to eat well and strength train and
I'm glad to say that my partner or the firm of my day job that I worked with, he was chatting to me the other day, and he's unlikely to ever see this, so it's probably okay.
I'll send it to him.
He turned around, we were chatting the other day, and he goes, oh God, I need to lose some weight. And I said, look, I've been on a weight loss journey, I'd be happy to help you. And his first response was, I'm not taking my shoes off.
That's funny.
I'm like, you don't, taking your shoes off is not going to help you lose weight.
Right.
Taking your shoes off is something that I've personally chosen to do, and is an individual choice. I don't disagree with the statement that everyone should be it, because I've taken the red pill and I want to share it with everybody because it's enlightening. But you don't, if you're going to, you need to put work in. It's like everything, right? And barefooting, if that's what you've chosen to do because you feel that it will be a catalyst to you being fitter, healthier, or I think the expression I used chatting to my wife last night was bigger, better, badder, stronger, right? Then you need to do the work. The first barefoot escapade I took, I walked. I might have run a couple of times just to try it out. I was on grass. I didn't go straight to gravel. And the gravel and other various terrains has come over time. It takes it takes kind of a commitment, and if you don't nail it the first time, which people would assume if they're running already, it doesn't go. It's not that. Your feet and you personally have to understand the texture feedback that you haven't had by being in a cushioned shoe up until that time. And you need to get used to it. And as much as you may not feel it initially, that there will be this sort of a slightly different endorphin release of, oh my God, I've just run on grass for 100 yards or whatever. And so yeah, it takes a bit of time. Right? You literally crawl, then walk, then run.
Yeah. So specifically for barefoot, so I've been working on over a year. I've been working on this Barefoot Transition course, and the idea popped into my head because both around the world and in Israel, I've become this barefoot guru of sorts. And not because I'm this guru, I'm not Tony Robbins. Ooh, exactly, bow down to me. But it's more because I have all this strength and conditioning knowledge, like how to train athletes, which a lot of the barefoot people don't have. Like they know a lot about shoes, they know a lot about mobility, but I have the performance element and the barefoot knowledge. So without like tooting my own horn, for me, it just all makes sense. Like I'm able to connect the dots and understand how to like load and deload and get strong, because what I've seen in the barefoot world is a lot of people, they address taking the shoes off, and they address, have 10 pairs of shoes, but they're not actually addressing, okay, and now I need to get my feet strong so I can function without the cushion. And that's kind of where, guys like Andy Bryan come in, Foot Collective come in, where they're also about, I have to be mobile, I have to be stable.
I've got to throw in Rena Harris into that as well, who is the barefoot podiatrist over here that works very closely with Andy, and I had the great pleasure of meeting her this week. She's awesome. She's like a female but English version of Andy.
We'll have to have her on the podcast. But for the people out there listening regarding specifically barefoot or barefoot transition, it's not going to magically changed my life, but because it was part of this journey of, I started Wim Hofing, I started ice bathing, I was more mobilizing more, I was spending more time outdoors in nature, I had got a dog, like all these things kind of work together to make the more holistic Sean V2 or Sean V3, because I've had many journeys during life, like barefoot, and maybe barefoot started that journey of more of a holistic me, as opposed to like gym rat me, but you start slow. So you're not going to lose weight by taking your shoes off. But for your coworker, for your boss, whatever, who's going to listen to this episode, it starts a journey, because suddenly you take your shoes off at home and you're like, Why am I barefoot? You know what? Let me go outside to the park with my kids so I can experience the grass. And then you're in the grass. You're like, oh, this is amazing. Let me make sure I'm on sunshine and earth. And it kind of like leads down this rabbit hole of infinite possibilities. So if you're out there listening, take your shoes off at home. Start slow. Take your shoes off at home. That's it. That's it. Not saying get minimalist shoes. I'm not saying run. I'm not saying run a marathon with Ben next week, in 2 weeks, barefoot. Take your shoes off at home. Once you want to progress from there, you can start taking the garbage out barefoot. You can start, you know, next time you go to the park with your kids or loved ones, you can take your shoes off on the grass. It feels amazing, by the way.
Yeah, it's
And
great.
then you can start trying, if you want to go down this rabbit hole, you can start trying to eliminate the thicker shoe. So look for a little bit of a thinner shoe, or try to eliminate the heel. Like ultra running shoes, I'm not a huge fan of them because they're like pretty thick, but for people transitioning, they're great. You're going from a shoe that has this crazy cushion to a shoe that's zero drop, and just eliminating that heel, just that. I'm not talking about toe box. I'm not talking about arch support. By eliminating that heel, you're allowing your ankle and Achilles tendon to function, and your ankle to function mostly properly. So if I'm allowing my foot to function properly, for your friend out there, I'm burning that extra 3 calories a day. You know what I mean? Like if my feet are working just that 1% harder, I am working a little hard. So it's a passive hack. Like I know I keep on like giving cameos in here of like my work, but it's not intentional. It's more just I've thought of all these scenarios, and it's like I want to address them. So like I'm writing this book. It's going to be called The Active Couch Potato, and a big element of it, no one steal that, is going to be like passive hacks, passive hacks you can do throughout the day, which require zero effort. And one of them is taking your shoes off. Like, I'm not going to magically turn into the world's strongest man by taking my shoes off. But if I can walk in the house with shoes, or I can walk in the house without shoes, it's the same amount of time. If I could take a cold shower, take a hot shower, I'm showering anyways. If I can stand on one leg while brushing my teeth, I'm brushing my teeth anyway. So it's not even like I have to run a 10K now. It's actually, I can do this in an optimal way or a non-optimal way. So take your shoes off at home. And just tying in like barefoot running, because we kind of addressed this very, very much. Barefoot runners specifically, you want to expose, in addition to like we spoke about strength and power and all those stuff, you want to make sure that you have a good toe alignment, because in a regular sneaker, your sneaker kind of takes the job over for your toes, which is not a good thing. But if you're barefoot, you need that big toe. You need to splay. You need to really extend off that big toe and running, jumping, walking, sprinting, squatting, everything you do. You want to make sure that your feet are exposed to texture. I think something that made hiking barefoot so enjoyable for me is my calluses. Like, you're not going to see them now in the water, but I can walk on heat, cold, thorns, rocks, sharp rocks with zero pain. Not because I'm Superman, or maybe I'm partial Superman, but I have adjusted to the texture. So like the calluses help with like the pointy stuff, and the tissues on my feet are so resilient and used to all these like weird terrains that I hike on and run on and walk on and expose myself to, that they've built up that resilience. So when you go barefoot for the first time, especially if it's not grass, you're going to be like, oh, this hurts, man. You know, this is painful. But when you slowly adjust to it, and it's another system, that's not the muscle, not the aerobic capacity system, that's not the respiratory system, it's not the skeletal system. Your skin is it's muscle, it's protein, it's amino acids that has to be built up and addressed as well. You want to add any points to the barefoot running tips?
I mean, I see. I get into sort of two. I don't have like calluses. My feet go through. They still soften. Obviously, you know, I don't particularly moisturize, but you know, if I'm wearing my barefoot or minimal shoes, they will soften because there's obviously moisture in there because I'm walking around or sweat or whatever. They're not hard, but there's also there's a mindset piece as well. So when I've ever done distances, I've always tried to envisage where I'm going for a run. If I know, it's the same with barefoot running. If you know what you're going, if you know the terrain you're going to go out and barefoot on, you should be prepared for what is ahead of you and be able to allow your foot to adapt accordingly. So I had a couple of gravel areas yesterday. I knew they were going to happen. I wasn't going to try and break any records. Because there were certain points where I was going to have to slow down and allow my body to adapt to the terrain, right? But I loved what you said about it, that the barefooting is it's a starting point to other stuff. So, and again, I'm going to assume we haven't got really much time for it, but from the barefooting, I've started to get, and I've fallen down this subsequent rabbit hole of nasal breathing, and I'm really, really early into that journey. But I've sort of awoken to the concept of breathing properly. The Wim Hof thing I told you at the beginning that I got the book and all this sort of stuff. It opens your mind to other stuff, and that's sort of where it starts. So I suppose, to exactly your point, that's barefooting is a good starter for 10.
Say
right?
barefooting is a good start too.
It's a good starter for 10. So it's an expression for a game show over here that we use, and it's sort of it's a good starting point. For 10 points, it's an easy question, right? So it's easy to take shoes up. And I did a post this week that obviously people are welcome to go and find on Instagram, where it's, if you don't try, how do you know?
I did see that, yeah. I was tagged in it too. In fact, I think I'm tagged in every one of your posts. It's a privilege.
Since we became friends, and we are buddies now at this point, we've had more conversations than I have with regular dude, people that I see. But people I see here on a weekly basis. We chat more about stuff. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
Well, we're barefoot weirdos together. The people at work don't relate, man. They're like, oh, you're this barefoot weirdo, you know.
Yeah, exactly. You look like clown shoes. I get that all the time. It's really
nice. I just don't wear shoes. So it's more like, why are you wearing shoes versus wear your clown shoes?
I think that's that Vic did a post today, or she was, I can't remember where it was. Someone was chatting to it about it. Kind of gets to a point that you're barefoot so often that people then are more surprised when you actually are wearing.
Oh
shoes.
yeah, I think that was. I commented on someone's post the other day. He's like let's wrap up with this because I have someone coming momentarily to the gym.
Yeah, no trouble.
But someone was taking pictures of their feet as she crossed the finish line, and I wrote in the comments, one day we'll get to a point where the photographer will take pictures of the people wearing sneakers because they'll be the weirdos and everyone else will be running barefoot. So
still quite an uphill struggle. But
yeah, let's wrap up. Just tell us where we can find you on social media and Facebook and YouTube and all that stuff, and we'll wrap up for the day.
Yeah. So I'm on YouTube. I haven't really sort of capitalized on YouTube that much, but you can find my channel, The Barefoot Daddy. It's got the same logo as is on my chest. Instagram is where I'm most active, which is at The Barefoot Daddy. There is a website and all that stuff, but you can go to the profile and see all those things. There's a link tree thing there for you. I'm that's pretty much it. I'm deep into this rabbit warren, less so hole at this point. The if anyone ever wants any as a practitioner, I'm not a professional. I'm someone who simply practices this. If someone wants a lay person's perspective, feel free to get, and if you've got technical questions, I'm always going to punt them off to you, Sean. Anyway, because you've got that backup piece, and you're writing about it, and your content's amazing. So you are. I'm thrilled that we have become Insta buddies, and one day, hopefully, either you'll come up here or I'll get my ass down to Israel and we'll hang. Absolutely.
In 2032, when the zombie stuff ends, let's do it. Yeah. Let's call it a day. It's been a privilege. Cool. Thank you so much for freezing your butt. Oh, not freezing your butt off with me. Next time you're freezing.
We will do a part 2.
Round 2.
I will freezing you, and then I will be in a bath.
Fantastic deal. Until next time, have an amazing weekend. It's been a privilege. I really appreciate you coming out. I'm going to try this virtual fist pound. I'm going to get this up in the next few days. We'll send it out to the community. I'm sure they'll love it. And yeah, that's it. Peace out.
Wicked, man. Catch you later.
See ya.
Bye.